be well aware that many Christian philosophers and theologians are adopting some form of materialism. And can I just ask you to comment on what you think the potential repercussions could be of this move?
Well, if my colleague is correct, and I think he is, that a materialistic view is incompatible with things like freedom of the will and intentionality, mental causation, I think this is disastrous for theological anthropology. As well as being unbiblical, the biblical view is clearly soul-body dualism. You see this especially in passages that contemplate the existence of the soul upon the death of the body, like 2 Corinthians chapter 5, where Paul says to be away from the body is to be at home with the Lord, and we would rather be at home than away, but he is patient in living through this life until he goes to be with the Lord. But it's clear that Paul is thinking there of an intermediate state between the death of the body and the resurrection of the body at the return of Christ, during which one exists as a disembodied soul. So I think dualism is the biblical view, and you're quite right that there is an unsettling tendency among many theologians who are, frankly, in many cases not very familiar with issues in philosophy of mind. I would say it's more important in many cases to study philosophy than to study theology with respect to these questions. And many of these theologians aren't familiar with these debates, and so they get into this kind of dead end, I think.
For those who may not be familiar with the context there, how does that manifest itself, this materialism move within theology? Can you give us examples?
Well, it would typically be to deny the existence of the soul, and accordingly to deny the state of the soul after death. These folks will champion the view of the resurrection of the body, that when you die, you cease to exist. But God will raise you from the dead again when your body is raised. But you cannot exist apart from your body. There is no soul. And I remember talking once with Nancy Murphy, who is a professor of theology at Fuller Theological Seminary. We were chatting, and she announced to me, well, I'm a materialist. And I said, you're a materialist? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, what about God? And she said, oh, well, I make an exception in his case. Well, that is totally ad hoc. God is a mind without a body. So if you're a materialist, how can there be a God? I think this is perhaps where the real danger lies. These people may be theists, but what's going to happen to their students in the next generation if they're convinced of materialism? Theism goes out the window.